Hello guys, today we'll be covering a 2010 Thai horror film called Cry Nay Hong. All the relevant links and information for the film will be in the description down below. Now let's get right into the movie. As the movie begins, we see a young woman named Pan sitting in front of a mirror applying makeup on her face. Moments later, Pan receives a phone call from her mother, but she hangs up immediately. Then she goes out to write a letter to her mother, which looks like a suicide note. After finishing the letter, Pan sits down, and just as she's about to cut her wrist, she hears a loud thud outside. Curious, she peeks out the window and sees that a man has just crashed on the top of her car. In the next scene, we see a couple of men from a film crew watching horror videos on a phone. One of them is a director who seems to be searching for horror videos that he can use in his next movie. After that, Domi, the one showing the video, is seen in the market going through a bunch of movie discs. He then asks the owner, Da, to suggest some horror movies to him. But Da instead tells him that he needs to relax and that horror movies are not good for relaxation. So in an attempt to relax him, Da shows him how to laugh like a maniac. Later, Domi purchases some movie CDs from the store, and among them, he receives a pamphlet titled, Who Are You? When he asks Da about the pamphlet, she simply suggests that it's where he'll find true happiness and that he should check it out. Next, Domi is seen in a bookstore purchasing some books for him. Moments later, he's joined by the same lady from the previous store. Once he gets the book, they both leave the store together and later arrive at Da's house. Domi finds her house a bit strange and dark, as it's filled with different kinds of animal exhibits. Later, they begin conversing about Ton, Da's 5-year-old son. When Domi asks her about her son's schooling, she reveals that Ton doesn't leave his room. Domi is unconcerned at first, but when Da further reveals that Ton has not left his room for the last 5 years, he's shocked. When they're talking about the kid, they hear a thudding sound from Ton's room above them. After a while, Domi leaves, and Da goes to talk to her son. She assures Ton that Domi is just a customer, and there's nothing he should worry about. The next day, Pan watches her mother arrive outside in a car with a man. She's not happy with her mother dating another person just shortly after her father left them. Later, Da is seen buying food from a local street food cart. Upon hearing the owner complain about her sad life, Da hands over the same Who Are You pamphlet to her and recommends paying a visit. Before leaving, the owner asks Da about Ton and informs her that people have seen him walking outside. Hearing this, Da is alarmed and cannot believe what she's just heard. In a flashback scene, Da goes to call Ton for dinner. However, he's busy playing games on the computer and doesn't want to be bothered. When Da angrily removes the plug from the computer, Ton gets angry and threatens to cut his wrist if she doesn't leave his room immediately. Back in the present, we're taken to the infamous Who Are You meditation center. There, during one of the practice sessions, we see Da following the instructions of the trainer. Meanwhile, we see Pan chatting with her friend about her mother's relationship. She opens up about her actual father leaving them, and ever since, her mother has been with several men. On the other hand, we see an awareness ad about hikikomori syndrome. It's a condition in kids where they withdraw from social life, causing them to stay locked inside their room for a long time. In this case, the victim often spends their days sleeping, carrying out their activities during the nighttime after everyone else is asleep. Next, we see Domi at the studio, where the director asks him about the script which he ordered him to write a few days ago. When the director reads the script, it appears that Domi has based it on Ton's life, a kid who has not left his room in the last 5 years. However, before accepting his script, the director challenges Domi to get Ton out of his room. After that, Domi meets Da to inform her about the hikikomori syndrome. According to Domi, it's a mental state, and the symptoms are the same as that of Ton. However, Da is not ready to believe that her son is mentally ill. He even blames Da for Ton's condition, as she constantly spoon-fed him everything, leading him to believe that his mother will always be there to protect him. Later, Domi persuades Da to force Tom out of his room so that he can feature him on the next TV show. When Da goes to ask Ton to come out of his room, he refuses to answer any calls. Later, Ton even sends out a threatening note written with his blood to scare them away. Just as Da begins to freak out seeing her son's blood, Ton sends out one of his severed fingers on a paper, causing her to scream in horror. However, Domi is still not convinced and is determined to get Ton out of his room. This results in a brief struggle between him and Da, causing Da to roll down the stairs. Moments later, Ton comes out of his room with a butcher's knife and slashes Domi's hand repeatedly. Next, Da regains consciousness after she falls from the stairs. A moment later, Ton comes down the stairs with his face covered by a towel. However, it's soon revealed that all of this sequence is just Da's nightmare. On the other hand, Pan is seen observing through the window as policemen gather around her locality. Soon her mother arrives and informs her that there's been a robbery in their neighborhood last night. Sometime later, her mother tells her that they're visiting a doctor to treat her allergy. As it turns out, Pan has a really bad allergy, forcing her to stay at home all the time. In a flashback scene, we see a very young Pan bullied by her classmates at school. Some of the boys dusted the duster after cleaning the board, leading her to be hospitalized. Next, we see two policemen arrive outside Da's home to question her about the recent robbery in the neighborhood. Seeing so many animal sculptures, the policemen ask her about them, but Da simply replies that they belong to her dead husband who used to be a zoologist. Later, one of the police officers hears a sudden noise and arrives outside Ton's room, but he ignores it, thinking it's probably just a mouse. We're then taken to another flashback scene in Pan's childhood. Pan is seen talking to one of the boys at school, but soon she's met by the same kids who bullied her. Back in the present, Da goes to attend yet another session at the Who Are You Meditation Center. There, we hear the trainer narrating a story about Catherine, a transgender woman who gave birth to a child because she was hypnotized to believe that she's a woman. Later, the truth unfolded before Catherine, which made her kill herself. According to the trainer, the power of the mind is unlimited, and anything is possible if there's enough optimism circling it. Later that day, Da saves Pan from being almost run over by a motorcycle. Before leaving, Da hands over the same Who Are You pamphlet to Pan's mother, indicating that it may cure Pan's allergies. However, Pan's mother doesn't believe in witchcraft and thinks it's all ridiculous. After her mother goes on yet another date, Pan is visited by Da. Then Pan reveals that she read the brochure that she gave earlier, which excites Da. She then tries to convince Pan that she needs to believe in mind power and that she can achieve happiness just by believing in it. Later, she hypnotizes Pan for a short duration and teaches her the way of achieving happiness. But before Da leaves the place, Pan asks her about Ton and whether he's actually in his room, which unsettles her. In another flashback scene, Da is seen complaining to her husband and Ton about cleaning the house. The house is filled with animal corpses, which adds to its filthiness. It's at that time that Da was introduced to Who Are You sessions through a TV ad. Later, she asks Ton to open the door, but it's of no use. She then goes on to rant about it to her husband, but he thinks Da is just being too hard on the kid. While checking her husband's stuff, she finds another woman's lingerie in it and also discovers pictures of him with other women. Furious, she then confronts her husband about it and berates him for cheating on her. However, we see that her husband is short-tempered and ruthlessly beats Da for talking to him like that. Meanwhile, Ton watches this entire scene unfold through a hole in the door in his room. Back in the present, Da talks to the trainer lady about her recurring nightmares recently. The lady suggests that the nightmares could be caused due to several thoughts circling inside the mind. She then suggests that, in order to get rid of it, Da should truly embrace the pain that she has been hiding inside. Next, we see Pan in front of her makeup table. She receives a call from her mother, who tries to comfort her and says that everything's all right. Meanwhile, a delivery boy reaches his apartment and is seen talking to someone on the phone. On the other hand, two English-speaking foreigners arrive outside Da's store looking for Thai horror movies. However, Da has a hard time understanding their language and instead shows them porn movies. Eventually, Da realizes what they mean, but she sees a creepy vision of her dead husband. She then leaves the place immediately and heads towards her house. Next, the delivery guy climbs up the ceiling of his flat, while Pan gets ready to write her suicide note. He then crawls all the way from his flat to Da's house to peep into Ton's room. He uses his phone to capture pictures and checks them out, instead of peeping outside himself. But later, the guy's scared for his life when he clicks a photo of the room and finds an eye staring back at him. In a moment of panic, he falls into the room, resulting in a loud thudding sound that alerts the entire neighborhood. As the guy starts running around, filled with panic and fear, one of the neighbors shoots him in the back, and the guy crash lands on the top of a car. Meanwhile, Pan watches this entire scene through the window of her room. She decides to go out even though her severe allergy makes it very difficult for her. Remembering what Da taught her the other day, she tries her best to control her mind and makes her way out to look for her pet cat, Tama. Eventually, her search leads her to Da's house, and she climbs the main gate to enter inside. She gathers all the courage that she could muster and carefully makes her way inside Da's house, looking for her cat. Soon, she gets reunited with her cat, but unfortunately, she finds herself in front of Ton's room. Curious about Ton, she slowly goes up to check, but instead, she finds a rotten dead body. As a result, she begins panicking and hides beside the stairs. Meanwhile, Da finally arrives at her house, but she's being followed by a man. She quickly rushes inside her house, but the man follows her inside. In a surprising turn of events, it's revealed that the man is her husband who's still alive. We're then taken to another flashback scene. On the night of Da's confrontation with her husband, she's seen pointing a rifle at her husband after he threatens to take their son with him. However, during their confrontation, Da mistakenly fires the rifle at Ton, who's been peeping through a hole. Both of them quickly rush into his room, and they find their son lying on the floor, dead. Da cannot believe what she did and starts screaming like a maniac. But in the present, her husband tries his best to convince her that their son is dead, but Da's not ready to believe him. She still thinks that her boy is up there in his room, playing games all day. Having no options left, her husband decides to go up to Ton's room to prove his point. It's then revealed that Ton's rotten body is kept on a chair in front of the computer as if he's playing games. Da smiles at it and treats it like her own son, while her husband stands there in surprise. Moments later, Da slits the neck of her husband so that her secret won't be revealed to the outside. Meanwhile, Pan watches the entire horror unfold through the bathroom window. Eventually, she comes out, but she's chased by Ton's rotten corpse. She then quickly climbs up the ceiling vent in order to escape the horror. Moments later, a sharp object falls on Da's chest and she's seriously injured. Now it's just Pan who's left hanging, holding a wire bound to the roof. As Ton's corpse tries to reach her, the roof crashes down, revealing it to the sunlight. As a result, the corpse turns to ashes. Meanwhile, Da just lies there, remembering one of the nights when she and her husband are celebrating their son's birthday. The next day, we see Pan's mother attending Who Are You sessions. It's then revealed that Da has been kept in a psychic ward because of her mental illness caused by her son's death. In the last scene of the movie, it's surprisingly revealed that Pan has succumbed to the same fate as Ton, as we see her mother waiting outside her closed doors, asking for her favorite food.